with yours truly, Bert Oliva. Today I have a special guest. And you know what's funny? Every time you look at these podcasts, I always say I have a special guest because everyone that I put in that chair is special, especially this man. He's one of my best mentors, best friend. He taught me so much in order to get into the seminar business. And he was the one that taught me how, there's so many lessons. And I'm going to break these lessons down with him. He probably doesn't even know that he's taught me all these lessons. But without further ado, my mentor and friend, Omar Perry.
Thank you, Bert. Thanks for having me here today.
No, it's a pleasure, man. Having you here is an honor. You were one of the first guys that I remember seeing you when you were doing those gigs with Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, and they had, before everyone started doing it, there was those arena seminars by Peter Lowe, remember?
Yeah, Get Motivated.
Get Motivated. Yeah. And I remember that you were the only Latin speaker in the market where it was either Anglo whites or Black Americans. So you became like my idol because I'm like, oh, there's a Cuban guy. Yeah. Even though at first, with your name, Omar Perry, you don't have, it doesn't sound like Oliva.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But when I heard you speak Spanish, I was like, oh my God. And that's when you were doing a lot of work with Tom Hopkins.
Yeah.
And I remember we got invited to a party, Candy G. And I remember you were a guest there, and I was with my wife, and I heard you speak, like just talking to someone. And I go, Alex, that's Omar Perry. She goes, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, that I know the voice. So we walked up to you. Long story short, we became friends. But then I followed your story, right? When you were doing Tom Murphy, and he took you to his house for like a month or something.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, he took me for a month to get me ready for sales and speaking and all that.
And by the way, for those that don't know who Tom Murphy is, he was like the promoters of the motivational world before motivational world, where it is today. This is stuff that's been doing. Back in the day, there was only a handful of motivational speakers.
Right.
Now we have all these people that are gurus, right?
Yeah, he had this company called Champions Unlimited that manage all the speakers.
Yeah. So I remember that when you said that story and I saw you sharing that story on stage, I went and got me a bus, an RV bus, and I showed up at your location. I'm like, hey, Omar, I'm ready to not move into your house, but I can park right next door. And you started cracking up.
I remember that. That was a cool looking bus.
No, I just been following you. We worked together.
Yep.
There was a lot of stuff that you kind of did that I wasn't sure why you were doing it, right? One of the lessons I learned, and I share this with a lot of my students, I said, you got to invest in yourself. And you were one of the coaches that told me, Bert, speaking is a cash flow business. You make good money, but it's not consistent. A company may hire you for 2 or 3 times, and then they'll bring in another speaker.
Right.
So invest in real estate, invest in different things so you can diversify. So I did a lot of that, and because of that, when this whole thing happened, that we were shut down, we were able to survive and be able to, and we were able to open up these studios and expand. A lot of those lessons, even though you don't know you're teaching, has taught me a lot, and my children, have learned a lot from your teachings.
Yeah.
But for those that don't know you, share with us a little bit how you got into the business, how you became, I call you the motivational teacher.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
So how did it all start?
Well, as you know, I came from Cuba, and we were sponsored by a church to Joliet, Illinois. And then I hated being cold, so I studied music, and I was really good at sports. So I went out to California to be discovered as a singer, and they weren't waiting for me. So I got a job as a personal trainer. I was training like Tom Selleck. I did trainings for Magic Johnson, Jerry West, just to name a few. And but I saw sales. But I saw a lot of salespeople making money, so I go into sales. I was failing, and I was having a really rough day, and I was praying, and I went to work that day. I walked to work. My car broke down.
And what were you selling back then?
Memberships.
Okay, for the gym.
Health clubs, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm looking out the window, and this man pulls up in a black 6.9 Mercedes. I'm a mechanic's son. I love cars. He gets out, and I thought to myself, wow, if I could be like that guy. So he walks in, He's got this huge medallion, all diamonds, with the phoenix bird, and it says Champions Unlimited. And that was his company. And he was the investor for the health clubs. So he invested in the clubs. And so they told me he wanted to get in shape. They brought him to me, and he started, great guy, a mentor, and changed my life, made me number one in the country in health and fitness.
But that was Tom Murphy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you met him.
Yeah. And I went to sales, vice president, general manager, owner, and then we sold the clubs. And he said to me, hey, you know, I was singing, as you know, and he says, why don't you come on the road with Tom and I and be the only authorized speaker in the world for Tom Hopkins? So he brought me on the road. My first speech was in front of 400 people, all managers, owners. And I knew leadership because I had managed all the clubs.
Right.
And it was funny, you know, I never even asked they had overhead projectors then. And I didn't even ask where the button was, you know. So I get up in front of 400 people, and my body stood up and my mind sat down, you know. So and I just froze. And so he pulls me over and yells at me. During the first break, he goes, what? You know, he just went nuts on me. And he goes, get up there. You know your stuff. So I get up there, and I had a 4-hour talk. I was done in 2 hours. So I took questions for 2 hours. Anyway, so I was in his house for a month before that. And then what happened was, the night before the speech, he changes it on me. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, because I like to prepare, you know. Anyway, next event, I'm on Get Motivated in front of 20,000 people. Wow. So now I go from 400 to 20,000. Then they put me on like 50 of those a year with Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Colin Powell, Schwarzkopf, celebrities, you name it, you know, from Joe Montana, Larry Bird.
Yeah, all the big headliners.
Yeah, every city they would pick the number one celebrity and what are the top coaches, things like that. So I did that till they closed right before the pandemic. It was a great time.
But you didn't come from money. You came from humble beginnings.
Yeah, my mom was a maid. My father was a mechanic. Then he became an employee gate guard.
But I like that one story, and you didn't share it, but I wanted you to share it. The one about the red light, and you were in the car. Can you explain that one? You were in the car, and the car took off, and then you were, you know, the smoke behind you because you couldn't move.
Yeah.
The tuna. Share that story.
My friends, I had an old beat-up GTO, and what happens is it got so bad that oil would drip out of the manifolds onto the mufflers, and so it would smoke. So I was at a light, and I'd go to a red light, and the car would smoke up the whole street so much that people would scream at me, and it'd be like, "You're killing us," you know. In fact, it was a big joke with my friends. Didn't matter what my dates looked like because I couldn't see them anywhere.
That's the one.
Yeah. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you came from no money, and today you have an amazing portfolio.
Yeah.
And not only that, a portfolio of some of the people, because in today's world is sad. You've coached, and I know this personally, some of the best speakers out there.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that, you know, are, you know, the top speakers in our industry. But they never give credit where credit is due.
Right.
And I've always remembered that no matter what, even if you surpass that person, even if you've done more stages, never forget where you came from.
I agree.
And yeah.
And I'm the same way. As you know, Tom Hopkins did the first forward for my book, the Investigative Selling. Zig Ziglar did his last forward for me, the fourth. He only did 4 books in his years. And mine, From Management to Leadership. Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken from the Soup of the Soul. Brian Tracy just did my last one with Tom Hopkins. So, I mean, I've been really fortunate. Bob Proctor, John Maxwell, all these men and women doing all my forwards and quotes. And
but in life you get what you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
You know, and you've been like, I mean, you're, to me, and it's funny though, because a lot of people will look at the social media, and especially the younger market.
Right.
And they look for, I called like, they're looking at your numbers.
Right.
They need to not look at those numbers. They need to reach out and meet the person.
Exactly.
Because we don't have the big numbers, but we have the experience.
Exactly.
And once they open that door and they're like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
You know, it happened to me recently. A millennial looks at my stories and he's like, I wanted to interview him. He's an influencer, and he looks at my numbers. He goes, "Why would I want you to interview me when you have so little numbers?"
Right.
Long story short, he's my coaching student.
Right.
Once he sat down and spoke to me, he's like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." So I tell a lot of people, especially the millennial group, stop looking at the numbers.
Right.
Reach out. Get to know the person. You'll be surprised the knowledge and the talent a person has if you just sit down with them.
Well, anyone can be, if you're really great at social media.
Like marketing.
You can be, TikTok. I mean, I saw a guy yesterday. He was trying to get my attention to work with him. And he kept like drinking water and spitting it out and asking me, what do I got to do to get your attention? Just in a camera.
Yeah.
And sends it to me. I was laughing my ass off because I'm like, dude, first of all, I don't need the money. I do this because I love it.
Yeah.
And then I mentor about a dozen people. I speak 35 times a year. That's all I need. And then I have a lot of investments. I mentor companies. I have investments. I really enjoy working with executives and mentors I'm mentoring them to build, upscale, or exit their companies.
Or build their team.
Yeah. So I'm really about that right now.
No. And when did wealth come into your life? Because that's what people don't understand. It's not like you get on stages and you become wealthy. Because there's a lot of speakers that have made it, and then you go back and look at them, and they're broke financially.
Well, yeah. In every room you're in, the numbers are, in every room that you're in, if there's 100 people, 95% of the people are actually broke. There's only a 5%, and then there's people like me in the 1% club.
Right.
So the key is, as you know, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And you got to pick up some great books like George Clayson's Richest Man in Babylon, things like that, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's a lot of good books you can pick up to learn about wealth, even though you don't know, we're not educated in that in school.
Yeah, and then that's what you've taught your children, right?
Yeah. I mean, even Ben Franklin had great wealth books in those days. He was a wealthy man.
Well, my favorite books are the old books.
Yeah.
The new book is a regurgitation of what they read before.
Right.
Some of these books like Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Those are the
Dale
Bible of the industry.
Those
right?
are amazing. You got Born Rich, Bob Proctor.
Yeah.
Secrets of Growing Rich, George Wattles. The Subconscious Mind, Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I mean, there's so many great books out there. I have a list in my head that I keep, Og Mandino, he was amazing.
Course.
Just a lot of great education.
I have a question. Why did you get into the business? Because today, it's being in the speaking business today is sexy, right?
Right.
When you started and when I started, there was only a handful of speakers.
Right.
Why did you get involved into the speaking business?
Well, my mentor, Tom Murphy, when I sold the health clubs and I started singing, I hit, like in the old days, we weren't recognized for the Grammy. It was called the Otto Cirgo from Spain and the Chin de Plata. Mm-hmm. And I won those 2 years in a row. And so after I did that, I hit the goal. He says, you studied with all these guys. They're your mentors. Why don't you start doing this? And I said, I really don't want to be a speaker. Said, no, really. You work with us for 10 years. We'll launch your books. Brian Tracy told me, come on, take the plunge. You know your stuff. You're the real deal. Jim Rohn was Mr. Murphy's best friend. Bob Proctor. I got lucky. Mr. Murphy knew everybody. He managed Dr. Maxwell Malta's works, Psychocybernetics, and Jay Abraham, the great marketing guru. So I got really lucky, and he was my mentor. And he just said, come on, you know your stuff. Let's put you on the road. So I did it, and at first I fought it, but I ended up loving it. Plus, give me more a regular for starting a family. It was a real stable life instead of being on the road.
Right.
11 weeks out of the month. 11 weeks out of the year. Every time you had a record. So I fell in love with it. And the thing I fell in love with was helping others. Like when I met you, and you pulled up in that big tricked out SUV. I'm not. He says it was a truck, but it was tricked out.
That was a bus. It was a mini bus.
It was amazing. Yeah. And then you started doing speaking and marketing. You invited me to some shoots you were doing and stuff. And And
but nobody was watching our stuff. We
It
were
was
ahead
so
of our
cool.
time.
Yeah.
But then that's when you said to me, "You want to do an event, Bert?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes." He goes, "Okay, good. This is what you're going to do. You're going to go ahead and rent the Broward Convention Center. You're going to fill the room, and I'm going to come in. I'll show you exactly what to do because you had the master plan, like from
Right.
Tony Robbins and all these things. You said you're going to go ahead and get X amount of trainers, go out there, go to the offices, sell them on FSR, field service rep.
Right.
So you gave me the whole master plan, and he go, now that I'm giving you all this, I'm keeping 100% of my sales. And I'm like, okay. So I go set up the event. Boom. You sell that room like I've never seen before. And we ended up losing money. But why did I do it? Because, even though I lost money, I really didn't. The knowledge that I learned, the second event was even easier.
Right.
So the second event, I told you, okay, I'm doing another event, but I need to make some money, Omar.
Right.
And you said, okay, I'll give you 40%.
Right.
And then after we did that, I was like, okay, I know how to set up events now.
Right.
Right. And you said to me, okay, I have an event in Boca, but if you want to speak on my platform, you need to have a product. I didn't have a product.
I remember that.
I learned from John Childers.
He was great.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah.
I spoke to him recently. He said to me, if I'll show you how to sell coaching with a sheet of paper.
Right.
So I said, okay, I got a product, Omar. So I go back and we do the event, and I did really well at that event.
Yeah.
I think we sold like close to 20-something thousand.
I remember.
And you
it was
said,
the first time.
but your trip, because you said to me, this is nice, good. So you then, okay, I'm going to bring you to my next event. However, you can't sell coaching because I now have a coaching program.
Right.
And I was like, this guy. But that's what kept pushing me on creating new products. The coaching was like tough love.
Yeah.
But
I remember the first time you sold well.
Yeah, I
And
was
you were,
freaking
you were
out.
crying.
Yeah, I was freaking out.
You were so excited. You started crying.
Because
I'll never
there's a
forget it.
difference
Yeah.
when you get paid to speak and when you have to get paid from a stage.
Yeah.
And not sound salesy and not have people have buyer's remorse. So to me, that was like, what? I'm
Yeah.
able to sell from a stage?
You know, it's funny. People think that, and I won't mention names, but I have speaker friends that can't sell from the stage. And they're famous, and they get paid $30,000 to speak.
Yep.
And I would always say, they'd say, well, what are your fees? I said, well, it's $15,000. Okay, $15,000. Sometimes they say, well, we can't pay you the 15. We'll give you 10. I'm like, fine, as long as I can sell. And then I won't.
You make more than 30.
I remember one event I did like 7 figures in an hour and a half.
I remember that event.
And then Rich
and I'll share it because it won't come from you.
Tony Robbins.
When you were doing the annex,
yeah,
you killed it.
Yeah.
You had broken the record of the most sales done from the back of the room.
That's right.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it. I
And
remember.
it was I would open the place, then Robert Kiyosaki, then Tony Robbins, then Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, because after the first time I did it, Robert Kiyosaki told the head of it, I'm never going after this guy, because I sold 1,500 packages, and the guy said, never bring a book again, because I had to autograph all 1,500 packages. So he had no one in his audience, because I was signing books.
Well, that's when he hired you.
Yeah.
To sell his programs.
Right.
You know,
Right. And then he brought me to all his biannual conferences. And then people don't know this. I think you were there. He also hired me to translate his materials to Spanish, and I was actually the voice I created the PowerPoint, I translated the Spanish, and I delivered the speeches in Spanish for Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't know. There's like, and I won't mention the other names, but out of the three top closers from a platform, you're number one.
Yep.
And I won't name the other two because there's no need unless they end up coming to my podcast. But you sell ice to Eskimos.
Well,
and you don't make them feel bad, and you provide the service.
Yeah.
You know, you can now go ahead and say, you know, I'm world renowned, called the closer.
Yeah.
You're the closer from a platform. There's no one else that does it the same way, and that's one of the lessons that I learned from you that I haven't learned from any other speaker. is how to sell from a platform.
Yeah, platform sales is a key because people think if you make a fee, great. Well, no, I'd rather show up if you put 300 to 500 people, 1,000 people in the room, and you don't have the money to pay me a fee. I'll show up as long as I can keep the product.
I believe it,
and I'll
I've seen it.
sell more than anyone there. Number one, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, and I'll also be able to, walk out with 10 times more than the people getting fees.
Exactly.
And there's different fee products. That's the best. And then you give the person a rev share, and then product shares where you don't share sales. You don't give them a rev share. So
Yeah, you make more money selling from a platform,
Right.
but it's an art.
and then you get clients.
Yeah, but it's an art. That's what people need to
It is an
understand. It's not like just getting on the stage and selling a product. People don't like to be sold.
Right.
It's an art, and you're one of the masters.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you guys really want to learn how to do it, reach out to Omar. And I don't know if you're going to be able to get coaching one-on-one because he's really booked. And this is not an upsell. I'm just telling you. But he's selective. And he's selective of who he works with because at the end of the day, it's your reputation.
Right.
And you have a strong reputation in the business. And, he's very careful not just to go ahead and just because you got the money and you want to hire him. No, he needs to know that you're going to be, authentic, honest, because it's his name at the end of the day.
And I've had people come up and offer me stupid money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't see it. If you don't see the vision, you can't do it. Right.
Yeah.
So, but remember I used to do that X Factor Speakers Boot Camp, which is platform sales, and you sent your whole staff there.
Yep.
And I might just start doing that again.
Maybe we should do it here.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be
Maybe
awesome.
we do it
It's
at the
great
My Zone.
place you got
Yeah,
here.
we'll do
Love
it here. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of these speakers that they have speaker training boot camp, but if you do your due diligence, you're lucky if you see them in a room of 10 people.
Yeah. Well, and they
we've been
mean
in
well.
rooms. I haven't hit 20,000 yet. My largest room was when I was working with Trump, and we did over 10,000 people in Caesar's Palace.
That's awesome.
But we've done big rooms.
I know.
And we've done little rooms.
Yeah.
One of the lessons I learned from you is, a lot of times these promoters will go ahead and tell you, no, I have 1,000 people. And you show up and you're lucky if there's 20.
Right.
You still deliver.
Yeah.
I never forgot that lesson. Yeah. And every time your voice is right here, Bert, you still get to deliver like there's 1,000.
Yeah.
It's your word.
Exactly.
It's your brand.
Because they don't care. They just care what you're delivering, right?
Yeah.
So it's important that you give them everything you got that day. And I learned that from Brian Tracy. He told me, your goal is to become better every day. So every time I give a speech, I add something or I do something that makes it better.
Yep.
And if I can touch one person in that audience or change their life,
you've done your job.
I did my job. It's not about the money. The money comes. I always feel, and this is one of the reasons I sell so well. I always feel that if I don't close them, they're going to buy somebody else's stuff, and they're not going to get the results I can give them.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is a great lesson.
Yeah.
I want to share a story that you shared with me years ago. When you bought the label.
Yeah.
Explain that whole thing. It was great.
Yeah, it's a long story. I'll do the Reader's Digest, but what happened was I wanted to become a recording artist, and
by the way, you have the best. Besides Frank Sinatra, my second album with Christmas songs is yours.
Thank you. We lost retired General Colin Powell just about 2 years ago, and I was in his top 5, and he collected holiday and Christmas albums.
Right.
I was in his top 5.
Yeah.
So, and Tom Hopkins also.
No, your songs are amazing.
Thank you.
It's just people don't realize it. When I heard the CD, I was like, you could just make money off selling these CDs for Christmas.
Yeah, and I did.
So go ahead, share that story.
So I wanted to become a recording artist. So I had these health clubs, and so I started recording demos. As everybody knows, a demo is what you do to get a record contract. So you'd normally do 4 songs, and I wrote music also, but I sang other people's music too, that wrote music. So I did my first demo, and I handed it all out in English, and I got this letter that said, nice voice, but son, right? So then I was kind of bummed out about it because I didn't get no bites. So I was walking, and I called my dad, and I said, Dad, I know I didn't get any calls or anything. He says, why don't you speak Spanish? Why don't you do it in Spanish? So I go back, I do 4 demos in Spanish, pass them out, and I get the same letter in Spanish translated, right? So nice voice, but, So I'm like, oh, you know what? So I was sitting there and I'm talking to my dad, and Tom Murphy goes, hey, you got the money. Why don't you buy a record company? So I walk into a record company I left my demo at, and there was a gentleman from Mexico, Arturo de la Parra. And I walked in, I go, Arturo. He goes, hey, Omar. He was really a nice guy. He'd always take me in and talk to me. I said, hey, I want to get what happened with my demo. He says, well, it's okay, but a lot of changes. Some guy just bought the company and he's coming this afternoon. And I'm like, come on, just give me a record contract, because I wanted him to give it to me for my talent, not because I bought the company. So he goes, I can't. The guy's coming right now. I said, Arturo, you're going to have to give me a record contract. He goes, why? He says, because I bought the company. And he goes, ay, Dios mío.
That's a great story.
We had a great time, became very close, and did great stuff with my music, Spanish, Italian, English. We did mariachis. We did a lot of fun stuff. And I sold that company because, Bert, sometimes you want to go so bad, you hit it. And when you hit it, you're like, okay, next. So I've had a lot of those things, like the health clubs, the record companies, the publishing companies, IT companies, energy drinks, whatever it is. I've done so much real estate, and I hit goals, and I get bored very easily. So I think that the one lesson I've learned in life is, number one, never get comfortable, because comfort is my biggest challenge, because I don't have to do anything, And the second lesson is, if you're not achieving your goals, there's one thing that's missing, and it's called your plan lacks courage. And if you're not achieving your goals, it's because your plan lacks courage. You may have a goal, you might have a plan, you might reverse engineer it for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. You might be time blocking, activity blocking, all that. But if your plan lacks courage, the moment you start getting your self-esteem and self-image getting conquered, you stop and you start thinking of ways to self-sabotage yourself and do things that failures do. So the key is to do what failures won't.
And how do you find courage when you're lacking it?
It's your why. Why are you doing it? You got to find something that makes you want to do it. Why are you doing what you're doing? Because if you don't, I know it's cliche, but finding your why is important. But people, when they find their why and they hit a goal, they forget their why. And now they get complacent. So the key is to reinventing yourself.
Which is what you're doing now with social media.
Yeah.
You don't have a need to do it, but you're always reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
You got to think out of the box. You got to be creative. And I see that even though you're in a position in your life that you really don't have to work ever again.
But I would go crazy. Yeah. I love what I do. Yeah. It's not work. I remember Bob Proctor, we lost him a couple of years ago, and he would always say, I don't know what else I would do. I love it so much. Yeah. Now I'm at the point that I just love what I do, and I love helping others and getting the results. Like, look at you. Look at where you're at. From a tricked out...
From a kid walking into your office saying, mentor me.
And I remember we were at a wedding, I think, when you came up to me.
Yeah, it was a wedding.
It was a wedding.
White, but that's where I heard your voice.
Yeah. And you came up. I was with my wife, and you said, "Are you Omar Perry?" I said, "Yeah." But that's happened to me a few times. I've been on airplanes
because you have a distinctive voice.
Yeah, I've been on airplanes, and my son's like, "Oh gosh, here we go." Somebody comes up, "Are you Omar?" Yes. I just want you to know you changed my life. Yeah. You don't know it. I did it through your books and audios. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
That's awesome. That's a good feeling.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah, that's what people don't understand. When we get a lot of the speakers in today's world get up there because it's a form of therapy.
Right.
We don't do it for that.
Right.
We do it because, which is why I looked up to you so much. We were immigrants.
Right.
And if this Cuban immigrant who came from Cuba with no father, no grandparents, no brother or sister, and I'm living the American dream, what's holding you back?
Right.
And that's one of the inspiration I got. You were fortunate you had mom and dad. I only had my mom.
Right.
So at the end of my talks, my new outro is, my name is Bert Oliva, Cuban born, American made.
I love that. I've heard it.
because
Yeah.
it's just it's a great land of opportunity.
Oh yeah.
The only
best.
reason these people or whoever it is watching this is not living their dream is because they lack courage,
Yeah.
like you were saying.
This is the greatest country on earth, and now that we're universal,
Yeah.
I mean, there's other great countries, but this is the country.
It's still,
I'm a patriot. I love this country, and I love our servicemen and women.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm one of the 4 approved trainers for the U.S. Army recruiters and Coast Guard. So I love providing service to our servicemen and women and our veterans. Yeah.
So what's the future for Omar Perry?
The future is I'm working on a new program, a new book. I just finished. I did my 28th launch this year.
How many books you have right now?
28.
28.
Yeah. And this one was done by Springer Publishing out of the UK. And that book is doing very well. And it's on decision making with Terry Bresnik, a dear friend of mine. So I did that. And now I'm writing a new book. I really focused on the mind because I've noticed all these years, the one thing that my mentors taught me about the mind is that the mind is the steering wheel of your body, and the body is just an instrument. And if the thing that people don't get is that the mind has to be connected to the body, but the body has to be connected to the mind. But I'm really focused on the mind and teaching people how to not take in negative influences. And, make a decision, be very aware of what you're putting in, and be able to just get rid of it immediately.
Especially in today's world,
Yeah.
with social media. Most of the stuff that pops up on your feed is negative.
Yeah. These kids, I mean, I feel terrible for the kids because a lot of these kids, they're good kids and they see their friends and their friends are like, oh, I'm not doing anything. They're at some party and they show the best scenario.
The highlights.
Yeah. And then this kid's sitting at home going, why, what's wrong with me? And that's bad,
Yes.
So the key is, be the best you can be. Don't expect anything from anyone except be the best you can be. And don't look at any of that stuff because none of it matters. What matters is the best you can be and keep working on yourself.
Yeah, I truly
love
believe
yourself first
Yeah.
because no one's going to love you unless you love yourself. So if you love yourself, that's the key to life.
Yeah, I agree.
And work on the present to the future. Forget the past. My mentor, Tom Hopkins, used to say, the past is nothing but a bucket of ashes. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, Omar, if we were going camping and we said, you're in charge of the fire and you showed up with 2 buckets of ashes, we look at you like you're nuts. How are we going to start a fire with that? You need logs, right? So if you show up in life with 2 buckets of ashes, you're done. And if you keep looking in the mirror,
That's all
you're done. You got to look forward, present, and future. Forget everything else. We all make mistakes. I'm not perfect. There's no perfect human being. And, there was only one perfect, and that was Jesus.
That's right.
Right? Everybody else is not. So, I know one thing that the whole key is to forget the past. We all screwed up. Whether it's money, family, friends, relationships, work on your present, love yourself, and work on the future. And that's it.
Great message. Before you leave, is there anything you want to leave to the audience, especially for 2024? Because, we're coming into the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when this is going to go up, but whether it's at the end of the year or in the beginning, it's probably going up in the beginning. Everyone has New Year's resolutions.
Right.
Everyone goes through that BS of, oh, this is going to be the best year.
Right.
And I don't look at life that way. I look at life that, I start my year right now.
Right.
You're lucky to be alive. I think Zig Ziglar said it, right? Every day is a great day. Just try missing one.
Exactly. Yeah, he was amazing.
What's your message for the new year or just for someone that's starting right now?
Well, no matter what happens, right now we know we're going into a 2024. There's going to be a lot of adjustments, right? Whether it's real estate, mortgages, finances, all this stuff. All you do is focus on yourself. The best thing I ever did was self-development. Focus on self-development. Study everyone. Study you, Bert Oliva. Study me. Study, Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret,
That's my favorite.
The Richest Man in Babylon. You name, just study. Brian Tracy. Listen to Les Brown. All the greats out there. Just get out there, and whatever you want, become a specialist, become the solution, become a PPS, professional problem solver. So if you work on yourself, your gifts will work on the future. So it's very important that start right now, everyday self-development, whoever you listen to, God bless, but work on yourself, stay positive, have a positive attitude, and wake up with an attitude of gratitude and just take action. Don't sit there and make excuses. No one's going to do it for you. Zig Ziglar used to say to me, God gives you the bread. God gives you the ingredients. You got to make the bread. So the key is you got the ingredients. Everybody's got what they need to do it. Now, will you apply yourself and have tenacity and focus and be obsessed of what you want? Because if you're not obsessed, you're not going to get it. And that's my message for 2024. Be obsessive.
I love it. Thank you, Omar. Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here. For those of you that got something out of this podcast, make sure to replay it. Share it with someone. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you with my quote, the quote I live by. Live life and don't let life live you. My name is Bert Oliva, Cuban-born, American-made. I'll talk to you soon.